Glad to have
Right
you
on,
on.
dude.
Ironically, I think your number. This is gonna be the 7th episode of this series, and I
Uh-huh.
think you're number 7 on the fitness fundamentals. The last podcast we did too. I have to check, but I think you're 7 on both of them. So this is actually really
That's
ironic
funny,
that
dude.
it worked out this way.
Lucky 7, right? I
Lucky
mean,
7, man.
yeah, exactly. I can't ask for a better number. I'm not much of a superstitious person, but that has to mean something, right?
It definitely
'Cause
does. I'm like, holy smokes! Like it just if it worked out that way, it just worked out that way. I didn't plan it. Kind of just going with the flow, man. But how have you been?
Yeah.
How's COVID been treating you? How's that been for work and this whole?
Well, COVID, as you know, I know you know this, and your followers probably don't know this, but my life over the last 6 months has been a complete and utter roller coaster.
Hmm.
Back in 2016, I was arrested for domestic violence with a previous partner of mine, and I've been battling that for the last 3+ years. And that ultimately, after two jury trials, one was a hung jury, the second was a conviction. So I was convicted of domestic violence and sentenced to prison back in March.
Hmm.
And now this happened about a week before COVID shelter in place here in the Bay Area, California.
Hmm.
So I go in to turn myself into jail a week later, and they say, no bueno. They say, no, COVID-19 has everything locked down, including people in your circumstances. So not only did COVID happen, but my life also has been placed on significant hold because I'm supposed to be in jail right now serving my term, serving my
Hmm.
sentence and getting that started. But now I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. I'm not I'm not in custody, so my jail time has not started,
Hmm.
but I'm out of custody and I'm kind of in this limbo phase where it's very challenging to operate.
Hmm.
So a lot of people ask me like, "Hey, how's COVID been treating you specifically?" And my first response is, I feel like I have been preparing for this for a while,
Yeah.
because even when I decided that I was going to fight my case, I knew that there ultimately could be a time when I end up in jail for it.
Hmm.
And so mentally, I was preparing for that. So mentally, I was already, okay, I'm going to be in a jail cell. How am I going to pass the time? What kind of fitness am I going to do? Like
Hmm.
basically like quarantine has been my mindset for quite some
Gotcha.
time. So now quarantine is here and I'm not in custody, but I've been preparing to be in custody.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's
that
like, damn,
it kind of worked. It worked out in the sense that you already mentally prepared to be in jail. So this is like a better sentence in a sense.
it is, and it does feel like a little bit of a sentence because with the gyms being closed, I used to work at NC Fit in Redwood
Hmm.
City in Northern California, and that has been because I was going to go to jail, they let me go.
Hmm.
So then I didn't go to jail, and now I don't have a job, and now I don't have a support, a way to make an income. So I started Iron Crew Athletics back, as you know, back in 2018, just as
Hmm.
kind of a side gig, just something to provide the members that I was coaching at a CrossFit class, which is a group setting class for those who don't know. And it was just a way for me as just kind of a hobby, write blogs, do podcasts, put out
Hmm.
some YouTube stuff, start an Instagram channel. And it was just more of a side gig. It was more of like hey, I really love doing this. Fitness is my passion. I love mobility. I love teaching people about nutrition. Why not give back? And that's why I started Iron Crew Athletics back in 2018. But initially, it was never to monetize anything. It was never to make a buck, or it was never. I never planned on like taking clients as a one-on-one coaching or anything like
Hmm.
that. But then this quarantine happened, and I get rejected to go to jail. Like I'm the only one that's actually trying to go to jail, and I can't get in. So I get rejected at the door, and now I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? And I vividly remember sitting there in the lobby at this jail, and I knew that they were going to reject me. It was just a matter of them printing out this paperwork.
Hmm.
And I remember being on my phone just brainstorming ideas. Who am I going to call? How am I going to make money? What am I going to do? I remember like I was actually going through my calendar the other day. I forget why. And I remember going back. I think that's why I wanted to know the exact date that I had tried to turn myself in. And I had set in the jail lobby, I had set a reminder for like 10 p.m. that night to update my LinkedIn profile. Like
Really?
that, yeah, like that was already in my mind. I was like, I was in survival mode. Like, how am I going to make this happen? And so in the meantime, I started putting out content on Instagram, like home workouts, and just
Hmm.
filming myself and putting up different workouts and exercise programs just on my story and on my wall and whatnot. And next thing you know, I get like 3 people reach out to me saying, "Hey, like I want you to train me," and I'm like, "Great, like I'd love to train you." So now I'm thinking like, okay, God, maybe I can pivot this Iron Crew Athletics thing into like a one-on-one coaching service.
Hmm.
So then I started to go back to the website and started to kind of reformat it a little bit and kind of redesign it. It still kind of generally looks the same, but it's a little bit more user friendly when it comes to having a product to offer. So man, it's been a roller coaster, dude. But so since then, I'm up to 5 clients now.
Nice.
It's still in startup mode phase. I've got a bunch of others that are kind of in the works and are probably going to sign up for my services. So it's actually a relatively exciting time for me. I know it's been really mentally taxing for a lot of people because they've just been twiddling their thumbs.
Uh-huh.
They're used to going out. They're used to going to parties. They're used to going to bars, or they're used to going to the gym. They're used to having their community, their social circle. Um, but for me, I feel like I'm just kind of creating my circle right now, and it's actually really really exciting for me.
That's awesome. It sounds like you got like a second win to kind of build up some things. Like this is like definitely a turning point for you. That sound like you're taking advantage of it the best way possible.
And that's all I can do for sure. I mean, I listened to a podcast a couple years ago, and they had this guy on, and I forget who he was actually, but he's written a couple of books, and he's kind of a motivational guy because he got into a car accident where he lost his leg,
Wow.
and he was in the hospital, and he woke up from surgery, and all he remembers was getting into a car accident and then waking up in a hospital bed, and his leg is gone. And
Oh shit.
so right, so obviously he's shocked, and
Um.
he's confused, and he's piecing it all together. And so he finally gets the whole story, and he finally pieces it all together, and he's looking at his leg, and he's like, okay, I don't have a leg. And he gives it 15 minutes or so, and his mom and dad come in and start talking to him, and he's kind of back to his normal happy-go-lucky self.
Hmm.
And this goes on for a couple of weeks, and he's not really down on himself. He's not feeling sorry for himself. And the doctor finally goes to the parents and says, "Hey, look, I think he's going through a hard time right now, obviously, and I think he's in denial, and he's probably not showing his emotions very well, and this sort of thing." And so his parents go to him and tell him that and say, "Hey, look, like we know that you're having a hard time." And this guy said, he goes, "Well, mom and dad, you don't, I don't think that you know me very well. Then he's like, I'm an eternal optimist. Like I'm actually just happy to be alive." And he said that he in his weakest moments, when something happens to him that's unfair, or something that happens to him that really sucks, and it's just kind of a life altering event, if he cannot, he said this in the podcast, if he cannot fix it, if he cannot change the outcome, then he gives himself 15 minutes to be angry, sad, pissed off, throw stuff at the wall, punch the wall, whatever he needs to do to get it out.
Hmm.
But then after that's done, no more pity, because all it is wasted energy.
It is.
And I remember listening to that podcast, and I'm like, God, that is so spot on. And that's kind of how I roll. When if there's still life in whatever it is I'm trying to fight for, then yes, that energy, it can be productive. That anger, that sadness, that could actually be productive energy
It
to
can be.
your ultimate goal. But if you're looking at a leg that is not going to come back, or you're looking at a jail sentence that's not going to go away,
Hmm.
or if you're looking at a COVID-19 that's not going anywhere anytime soon, you got 15 minutes, man. Fucking throw stuff at the wall, cuss all you want, do what you got to do. But at the end of the day, it's not, you have no control over it. So take the energy that you have and focus it on something positive.
That's been the biggest message for me too during this time. Like, with not being able to train as well, being a personal trainer, having to find new avenues to make money, having more time to kind of dip delve deeper into stuff like this, like with the podcast. Like I've wanted to do more stuff for my podcast in 2020. So definitely, you know, I had my little moments where I'm like, oh man, everything's horrible. I can't control this. And it's like, okay, 15 minutes, kind of bounce right back to it.
And that's great. Like exactly what you're doing. Like imagine, because you don't have your own gym, do you?
I do not.
You're fully remote.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine you're a brick and mortar and your doors are closed. Obviously, a lot of gyms in the space are, you know, pivoting to online Zoom classes, all that jazz. But if you're going to still plan on keeping your brick and mortar, what are you going to do? Are you going to let that brick and mortar just rot away? Or are you going to use this time to repaint the walls, redo the bathrooms, make new signs, put up new things inside the gym that make it a little bit better, things that you probably were putting off or
Mm-hmm.
didn't have time to do? This is your opportunity to do it. So
It
in your
is.
case, you're doing exactly that. Like you're not a brick and mortar, you're a remote situation. So podcasting, YouTube videos. I see you're on TikTok, dude.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
You're
man.
killing it.
If there's eyeballs there, I'm there.
You're killing it on TikTok and Twitter. You got to give me a tutorial on both of those.
I will, man. I'm here to help because it's definitely like learning a new language every single time you're on one of those apps. Like a whole new like set of rules you got to learn to apply. I'm a big fan of Gary Vee, and he's always talking about like even if an app is hot for like a month, you know, it's worth going on there because you'll learn different things on how to communicate on that app that will help you out with the next app. And like making a TikTok definitely helped me. Like it changed how I thought about content, which made some of my content on Instagram better too. So like it like changed my cycle of thinking in a lot of ways because it was just so different and I had to find my own spot there. So I think and even with like even metaphorically it's like Corona as a whole COVID thing is that like you're gonna when you grow and to adjust into something new, all the things that you're learning will reflect in something that you know already as well that kind of will help change that mentality, you know. So I would say just try it out, just do it. I don't know. There's a lot of stigmas about it now about it, like they're taking all your information, all your phone, all your data. Um I always preface that now because I just know like people have told me that and I'm like, I'm already in it. So like it is what it is at this point. I know a lot of companies are doing it, but I always give people that same little political information because I'm an advocate for it, but at the same time, like I don't know what's happening on the back end.
Yeah, and it's actually a scary situation as to what's happening on the back end. I mean, there's so much that's going on under our nose that we might not even be knowing about. But here's the deal for me. I'm of the at least me personally, because I've gone through so much and all of my shit is public information. Dude, if somebody wanted my info, they could get it, dude. So it doesn't take TikTok for them to steal my info.
I agree with that, man. I'm like, I have nothing to hide, so they can have it. I don't know what they're gonna do with it. I'll probably find out in 10 years and like, well, I'll live with those things when it happens.
And some of those things are like political warfare, you know, like stuff that you might be seeing on your Facebook feed or your Instagram feed. You know, this whole notion that your phone is listening to you. Fuck, I'm a firm believer that that's probably happening.
I think so
Um,
too.
but you know, if they're, you know, the things that they can do, that they can use your information for is, you know, targeting you for certain ads. But if, you know, certain ads and certain quote unquote propaganda that kind of swayed you in one way or the other. But I know who you are and I know who I am. And I know that we're both very self aware people.
Hmm.
And with self awareness, whenever I see an ad, I'm like, whoa, how do they know that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it doesn't go over my head when I see an ad. I always know that they're doing that for a reason. And I remember back, what was it? Yeah, the death of George Floyd. Like not too, like a few weeks after that, like
Hmm.
I was heavy into engaging with people on Black Lives Matter and George Floyd and police brutality and all that stuff. And I had to actually remove myself from it because I started to realize the toxic nature of those conversations with certain people on public platforms like that, and just how it was very non-productive. And so I had to actually take a step back and remove myself from those conversations because it was causing me an extreme amount of anxiety,
Hmm.
an extreme amount of stress that was not there before. And I recognized that it was coming from that. But during that time, all of my ads, all of the things that were sponsored ads during that time, all of it was political stuff, dude. All of it was Black Lives Matter. All of it was Trump 2020. It was just crazy, dude.
It's nuts how how well they can target you for what's going on and what you're engaging about. During when everything first changed too, like you were one of the people that I saw, because like we had conversation, we already talked, we had a podcast. I already had an idea how you were like as a person, and then some of the
Right.
things you were posting, I was like, why is he saying this, or why is he saying like that? I would see you post something, and it was the opposite of how I was just thinking like. At first, it was like Black Lives Matter, everything, like anything against that is the devil, you know, like I hate you, I want
Right.
to fight you. I was in that same mentality of like, this is bad, attack, 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 attack. And then I just saw certain people post other things, and I was like, you were one of the people that I saw, and I was like, all right, I've talked to this person, I know how this person thinks, you know, I have a good, a good enough feel of your character. And I was like, all right, well, maybe like there's something that I'm not seeing too. And that's what kind of inspired me to kind of start looking at things on both sides, and just at least giving people like having more conversations really has just taught me that things are not always the same. Like the way you might see something may not be the way someone else sees something, and only through talking to each other can you really understand where the balance is. And then you being like you also being a police officer for a certain amount of times, like I really wanted to hear your perspective on this like topic as well too.
Yeah, and as a black man from Philly, I want to hear your perspective. And believe me, I want you on my podcast. I haven't gotten around to getting guests back on. I'm still kind of getting back into the groove of things. Um, but you're 100% right, and that was the thing that was probably most stressful for me during that time, was the immediate rejection of anything outside the norm for that person's social circle. So
Mm-hmm.
for example, if you're heavy on the Black Lives Matter situation or Black Lives Matter movement, and you see anything that goes against that in any way, shape, or form, it was immediate rejection. It was immediate, um, respond to this person and tell them that they're wrong. And it was like this mob mentality, right? Where
Definitely.
I would put up something that was, somewhat, anti Black Lives Matter, and some people were just like, I felt like I was getting barraged by like 30 people,
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like I was getting beat up, and I thought, wow, this is crazy. Like, all I really wanted to say was that, like, hey, violence isn't the answer,
Mm-hmm.
and actually through those conversations though, because I am so open-minded and I'm not necessarily pigeonholed into one particular belief, that's one thing that I pride myself on, is that if I believe something right now in this very moment, it doesn't mean that it's forever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my opinions change all the time, and just because we're having this conversation right now via podcast, if I say something now, that doesn't mean that I can't change my mind tomorrow on that.
Absolutely.
Obviously
Absolutely.
there are things that I have personal experience with and have studied at a great length, that I do believe wholeheartedly, and it would probably take a lot longer for me to change my mind on certain topics. But a lot of these things are very new to me, and yeah, you alluded to the fact that, I was a cop. I was a cop for 10 years. And before, when I was a cop, I was around when Black Lives Matter. I was a cop in the Bay Area in California. So
Okay.
it's about 50 miles south of San Francisco. I was a cop at an agency, Santa Clara Police Department, which was home to the 50th Super Bowl, I believe, back in 2000, I think 16. And so I was a cop there for 10 years, and while I was a cop, the Black Lives Matter movement started after Trayvon Martin
Yep.
was killed in Florida, and then it actually started to catch a lot of steam after the death of the man in Ferguson, Mike Brown, I believe his name
Mm-hmm.
was. And those were two unarmed black men. One was obviously killed by a non-police officer, and one was killed by a white police officer. And during that time, I remember just how crazy the media was going, and how much information the media was pumping out. And as a law enforcement officer, law enforcement has access to confidential information that
Mm-hmm.
not even the media has access to. So when you have access to that confidential information, you have access to, for the most part, the truth, like what the accurate reflection of the incident was.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have a factual, accurate depiction of what the incident was and how it unfolded, no more is it Fox News versus CNN, or Fox News
Mm-hmm.
versus MSNBC. It's not Fox trying to convince you that gun laws are great and You know what I mean? Black Lives Matter sucks. And it's not the other side saying that, you know, Black Lives Matter movement and all Black people are getting killed by white cops. There's none of that. It's just facts, and that's it. So when I was a cop, I actually tuned out the media because I didn't want anything to affect my job. I didn't want to second guess myself just because I was interacting with a Black man, knowing what the media would think of me if I acted a certain way. I would just interact with everybody the exact same, no matter what happened, based on the set of circumstances that we were in. And so I actually didn't realize how bad some of the media information was out there because I was so ignorant to it, because I intentionally blocked it out. So now here, flash forward, you know, 3 years later, I'm 3.5 years outside of law enforcement, and I don't have access to all this information. And so a lot of times my first inclination is to kind of wonder what's actually happening on the back end. So the George Floyd, let's use the George Floyd incident is an example that is pretty dang clear cut. You know, that maneuver probably should not have been a maneuver that was allowed by the Minneapolis PD. It was an allowed maneuver. I don't think this officer definitely did not implement it correctly. 8.5 minutes on anybody's neck is not the way that you do that, especially in handcuffs. I mean, sure, he was a big dude, but he didn't even look like he was resisting all that much. It's just, that was bad. This guy definitely deserved to go to jail and needs to be held accountable for what he did. And that was a horrendous thing that happened. But then what happens after this is everybody starts piggybacking or piling on all of the previous things that have happened. And so then you start to hear things like the Trayvon Martin case, or the Mike Brown case, or some of these other cases that, or that kid, the young boy, right? His last name is Rice. I forget his first name. A young 12-year-old boy in, I believe, Cleveland, Ohio, was shot and killed by a police officer because he was aiming a toy gun at him, but it looked like a real gun.
I heard the story, but I don't remember the name for that one. And there's just so much coming at me that I'm like, I can't even process it all either. It's crazy, a lot, man.
But the thing that really bothered me on this last George Floyd case wasn't the George Floyd case. When I looked at that, I was like, dude, this is horrible. You know what I mean? This is awful. But then all of the other things start to kind of come out, and they start referencing things like Mike Brown and Trayvon Martin. And they're saying things that are factually incorrect. Like Mike Brown was running away with his hands in the air. That's factually incorrect and was proven incorrect by over 24 independent witnesses, many of whom were Black. And they said, no, he did not have his hands up. He was charging at the officer, and he had his hand in his waistband as if he was going to reach for a gun. You know, another thing about the Mike Brown case is that he was beating the crap out of that officer in his own patrol car, reaching for his gun, confirmed through DNA. Mike Brown's DNA was found on the police officer's handgun, on the police officer's uniform, and on the inside of the police officer's patrol vehicle, which is consistent with him trying to beat up the officer and trying to get a hold of his gun. So that was a part of this. The Trayvon Martin case, that's also a very tragic one. I do think that was one that did not have to happen. That man, George Zimmerman, I think his name was.
Yeah, he's still free and doing all types of stuff.
He's still free. He did not have to contact this young man. He did not have to go up to him like he did. That was unnecessary. However, he did do that. And then what happened was Trayvon Martin started to beat him up. This George Zimmerman, I believe, had a fractured nose. He was beat up. He was getting his butt kicked. Now, that's not an excuse for, having to pull the trigger or shoot somebody. But I wasn't there, and I think those facts don't necessarily get played in the media. A lot of times they just say, oh, George Zimmerman gunned down an unarmed black kid. And it's like, gunned down implies that, this person was running away and you're shooting him in the back, or this person was just hunting for a black man to kill.
The fractured nose thing, is that public knowledge, or is that only something you kind of were privy to? Or I didn't know that either, but I haven't looked. A lot of these cases I haven't looked that much in depth into. Like, I'll see the video and I'll understand that someone passed away, but I don't know. I'm not even as well informed as I'd like to be either.
It is public information. You kind of have to dig for it. That's the other thing that I've realized is you have to do your due diligence. You have to actually read the article. you have to read the article that you see. And I know you actually posted this recently on your social about clickbait and how fucking media is the real enemy here.
It
You know what I
is.
mean?
It really is. And it's become more and more apparent the more like I talk to
It
people.
I was sent an article of a Hispanic man. They described him as a Hispanic or a Mexican man gunned down by police. Now, this was relatively recently, like 6 weeks ago. So, Hispanic man gunned down by police. That basically implies that he was assaulted in some way, or he was
Mm-hmm.
targeted for some reason that was unjust or something. But you open up, and that's the article. That's the way that the article is headlined. So of course you click on it, right? Because we want to
Mm-hmm.
believe. We now at this point now, a lot of Americans want to believe that cops are out killing brown people or dark people,
Absolutely.
and so you read the article, and this Hispanic man had a gun, and he was at a gas station where there was people around, and I don't know the
I feel like I
circumstances
did hear
about
someone
why
talking about this story.
he was at the gas station, and I don't know the circumstances, if he was robbing the place or if he was there to actually hurt somebody or if he was just a psychologically disturbed person. But he was there at a gas station with a gun, and he was refusing to drop the gun, and the police shot and killed him. And so you think, okay, well, God, like the cops were doing their job, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? This guy,
The
like,
cops are being cops.
the cops were doing exactly what they were being paid to do and exactly why they got called there. They weren't looking for a Hispanic man to kill. They got called there. So you have to be careful with the media. And I think that now, again, now that I'm 3.5 years removed from law enforcement, I'm having to do my own digging. But if you dig hard enough and if you dig long enough and you essentially read, multiple articles on the same incident,
You do.
you'll start to piece together certain things, and you'll start to notice that certain articles will kind of leave out certain details that other articles will not leave out. And then it bothers me because it's like, well, then who the heck do I trust, right? Do I trust
That
this one? Do I trust this one? And
that
it's challenging to trust. It really is challenging to trust. But I think that a lot of times, if you just took a step back, read the article, critically thought about the incident, and read a handful of articles on the same thing from multiple sites, like read one from a very left-wing media source, read one from a very right-wing, try to read one from somewhere in between, try to read like a local newspaper who doesn't necessarily have vested interest in getting clicks. Those types of things are going to help you get a greater understanding for what exactly happened based on the individual incident.
Yeah, that's something that that has become even more apparent to me during this time because the more I realize, like being on just being, of one mindset at one point, and then being like, okay, what else is going on, and then reading stuff on the opposite side, and just seeing that different things were highlighted, same story but different things kind of altered and perceived. Like it definitely, I was like, okay, there's more to this than just, it seems like things are more bait clickbait for attention, and then kind of feeding to whatever you're looking for, you're going to see inside that article, and they're going to give it to you. And the other side is going to do the same thing. So finding out what's true and what's actually like the real thing is kind of the quest that I'm on now, even more. And one of the biggest things, like even like us being in the fitness industry, me knowing what like the fad diets and how that looks in the media, I was like, okay, if they're doing this to food for like your health, I can't imagine them doing it for politics or what they're doing. Like it's that same. Like I have enough understanding of what goes into fat loss or weight loss or whatever fitness trend they have going on. Conceptually, I have enough knowledge to say that okay, I know that's bullshit. I know that's being hyped up. I know that's exaggerated. So now that I know that they do that like instinctively, like I already know that anything that I'm being fed has an agenda, and like I'm just seeing it now. I don't know if more people are of that same mindset, or if more people are more extreme. Like there's just like more like most people that I talk to are pretty level headed, but when we get into like that tribal group think, it's just like us and them, and the media is really trying to feed that us and them clash. That's like what they're thriving off right now.
And they're doing it very well, and it's definitely not by accident. It is an election year, and Democrats and Republicans are fighting against each other for votes. Historically, African Americans vote Democrat, and so a lot of Democrats are going to be really, really pumping the Black Lives Matter movement up and
They are.
defunding the police because that's what they know is going to get them the vote from a certain demographic. So yeah, you have to just stop and think. And that my biggest suggestion to anybody who is trying to go down a quest or a journey of understanding both sides a little bit better is force yourself outside of your comfort zone. And this is just in life in general, right?
Yeah.
Like that when you grow, you are just outside your comfort zone. So your comfort zone, let's say you're an extreme liberal, your comfort zone is in, the liberal media, and you're going to be reading things that already confirm your predisposed beliefs. But what you need to do to have a well-rounded understanding of what's going on is consume right-wing stuff, consume your right-wing material and your media, because at least you start to have an understanding of where they're coming from. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to listen to them or read their articles with the intent to like switch sides, quote unquote, switch sides. And I hate saying that, right?
I know, I hate saying it too, but it's like, you have to get the message
we are
across.
divided. Yes, we are divided. I mean, I think the vast majority of people in this country are somewhere in between. And that's the encouraging thing. It's just that the loudest voices are the ones that we hear. And those are the most extreme ones. And those are the most extreme left and the extreme right. It's just like, not every Muslim is a terrorist, right? Like a very small percentage of Muslims are international terrorists. But for some reason, we think Muslim, we think terrorist, right? But it's like, that's obviously not the case. And just because you say you think, Republican doesn't necessarily mean that you say you think anti-Black Lives Matter, right? It's just, it doesn't necessarily ring true for everybody. But going back to my point is consume media and listen to podcasts, read blogs, watch YouTube videos that are against your belief with the intent to simply understand where the other side is coming from. Because the more you understand the side, the more information you're going to be consuming. But what you can also start doing is try your best. Let's just say you are an extreme left. Go to the extreme right, listen to a video, watch a YouTube video, listen to a podcast, read a blog. Pick, a handful of things out of that and fact check it. Look into the individual pieces that they're trying to convince you of, and go do your own research on that one thing. And so like that's the journey that I went down about a month and a half ago or so, which was, God, I want to understand everything about redlining. I want to understand everything about like school district zones. I want to understand everything about like food deserts and what that's all about. And I want to understand about like, is the police brutality thing an actual real thing? Like, I want to know the statistics about that. And I went down the line and I just kind of like, I started like checking certain boxes, like, okay, I have a better understanding of that now. So when I see an article that's, very swayed or biased, I will be able to have some sort of context of that topic so that I can either call bullshit or I can say, yeah, that's true. And I just encourage everybody to do that. And it's uncomfortable. That's the thing. That's why it's uncomfortable to hear, because, although I'm kind of a libertarian at heart. I think I have very conservative social views, but I have very liberal social views, but I have very conservative kind of financial views. So I think I'm still learning about all this stuff even as we speak. But that's just kind of what it's hard to hear. Certain things are hard to hear. But when they're hard to hear, that means that that's an issue within yourself. So if you're having a hard time listening to, certain media sources or reading them, that's an indicator that you have some sort of growth to do inside, so that you can, hopefully you can empathize with both parties, understand both parties, and have some sort of a productive conversation with them.
Absolutely. So how have you been keeping yourself fit during this time?
So, a lot of home type stuff. I personally have a set of dumbbells, a light kettlebell.
Nice.
I have, and not a big set. I have a pair of 45s, 35s, 20s. I have a 35-pound kettlebell. I have a jump rope. I have a mat. I have, very, very basic, equipment, home gym equipment.
Nice. They're better than me.
Thankfully, about 10-minute drive from where I live, is this soccer field that's open to the public right now.
Oh,
And it
beautiful.
has it's open. It has a parking lot. You literally drive up to the parking lot and the field is 10 feet away. So I have Marie Kondoed my trunk and just put all of my equipment in the trunk of my car and have taken it to the field every single morning at 5:30 a.m. And it started with just me and a buddy, and then my buddy invited somebody, and then she invited somebody. So now we got like a group of like 6 or 7 people, and it's like a little
Nice.
fucking Iron Crew boot camp, dude. Like totally inadvertently. So not only do we have people to hold ourselves accountable, but we also have something, you know, an actual place to go that's outdoors. Thankfully, it's summer, and it's, you know, it's a lesser degree or lesser chance that you're going to catch COVID, because we're still, you know, staying 6 feet apart and whatnot.
Hmm.
And then the other thing too is community, man. Like that's been for me, like that's been the biggest part of that 5:30 a.m. boot camp Monday through Friday that we've been doing, is a community, because I think that's the biggest thing out of everything that we've lost, right? Like whether it's finances, whether it's your job, whether it's your living situation, whether it's your partner, your spouse, like, you know, like the quarantine is having people in relationships dropping like flies, just like anything else, just like everything else.
Absolutely.
And so out of all of the loss that we have experienced, community, a sense of belonging, in my opinion, is probably the number one. And this is just my opinion, but I think that whether you go to work, whether you go to the gym, whether you have a Bible study group, whether you get together with your buddies on the weekends and go bowling, or whatever that case may be, that is all a form of your belonging, your place in the world. And now that place in the world has been taken away. You don't have your people anymore. You don't have your tribe. And you know, one of the biggest predictors of life expectancy, and this was a study done out of this small town in like southern Italy. It's like kind
Hmm.
of an older study about this one little. I'm drawing a blank on the actual name of it, but it's a southern tip of Italy, or maybe even Sicily, where this small group of individuals, is this community of individuals, their life expectancy was like significantly more and greater than any other in Italy. And they were trying to figure out like what they were doing. And they were like, maybe they're exercising a lot, maybe they're eating better, maybe they're not smoking. They were doing all those things. In fact, they were
Wow.
all like obese people, like they were just like kind of normal Italians. And what they had more than the other areas was a sense of community. Everybody had a, a job. Everybody had their mission. Everybody had their role in their village, in their little clan, and they had a place to be. So when you woke up in the morning, you had somewhere to be at a certain time, and you had all had a common goal. And so when that's taken away from you, you don't have shit to live for. And so when you don't have your clan to go to report to, whether that's work or whether that's your gym, now all of a sudden you're like, what do I do? Like, what do I do with my
Hmm.
life? Like, why should I wake up every morning early to go do something when nobody's expecting me to be there? And so it's a very challenging thing. So the sense of community, and ways that people can get that, people can get that through social media, but I I challenge people to steer away from that being their home or their sense of belonging or their community. I would more go towards like the private route, like get a group of people and do a Zoom conference, right?
Hmm.
So if you're really into plants or something, like get a plant group and like have 5 of you every Friday get together, do a Zoom conference, talk about your plants, talk about, you know, little tips of the trade of how to make your plant grow better, or a book club even, you know, have a book club and do a Zoom meeting. There are ways that you can get around this and still have your sense of belonging. Group text threads are also a big one. Group text threads are big because it's a little bit more personal than an Instagram post or an
Hmm.
Instagram direct message. Thankfully, the majority of the country, you can go outside as long as you are safely socially distancing. I don't know how
Hmm.
it is down in San Diego, but
Same
I
here,
think,
about the same.
yeah. I mean, if you go to like a public park, you're fine, right? Like you could do your book club at the park. You could do your knitting at the park. You could do your group fitness at the park. You can do these things. You're going to have to take some extra precautions. You might have to put some cones out to make sure that everyone's exactly 6 feet apart. You might all have to be wearing masks. You might have to bring hand sanitizer or wipes to wipe down the equipment, but that's fine. It's better than doing it on your own, because the accountability piece is huge. And I'm talking for the majority of people. There are a very small amount of people out there that can do this stuff on their own, right? Like they just love grinding in their garage gym or whatever. But most people are not that. You know, most people gravitate towards a personal trainer or a training partner or a group fitness class to hold themselves accountable. And without that, you're going to end up, you know, losing muscle, gaining fat, and, you know, picking up unhealthy habits.
Yeah, man. Watching out for those unhealthy habits. They're definitely coming in, man. They're definitely coming. I had some chips in my house, and I was like, yeah, I can't buy you guys again because I've been snacking you guys way too much.
Yeah, quarantine snacks are real, man. That's a real thing.
That quarantine 15 is coming for you, man. Like I've been I have been doing a little bit. So I've been running a lot more now. It's because, you know, it's one of the things I can actually do. I have a couple of weights in my house. So like nothing, I think the biggest one is like 30 pounds. Is a bunch of like dumbbells you can kind of clip and unclip. So doing a lot of stuff that way, a lot of calisthenic stuff. I mean, I'm making it work, but working out inside your house is definitely like, I didn't realize how much of a struggle it was until like I was doing it and I was like, oh man, like, oh, I have to go clean the dishes. Oh, I have to go do this. Like, there's just so many other things that you think about when you're in here that you can't even, like, trying to find that motivation, getting that gritty zone is like, it's definitely a challenge. Like, I have a lot more empathy for people that work out at home or people that struggle with fitness, because when you work at a gym all day, you know, it's like second nature. Like, let me just turn the juice on and get into it. But get into that mindset in a different location or in a location that you're at typically, it's a whole different can of worms.
It really is, because yeah, just like you said, like if you're working out in your living room and you peer over to the dishes that are on the counter, that's going to bother you. That's going to distract you. You know, it's exactly why we need to get out of the house. It's exactly why you need to go on vacation every now and again. It's not because you hate your life or you hate your house. It's just because you just want to, like, you want to mentally decompress. So when you go to the gym, you're not worried about that spot on the carpet, you know what I mean, that you need to clean up, or the dishes on the counter, or, you know, whatever it is you got to get done, the checklist. You're not thinking about those things. But going back to what you were saying is, like, if you have a different room, or if you have a patio, or if you have a lawn, or if you have a park around the corner from your house or your apartment, try your best to, like, compartmentalize your day. You know, have a workspace. Even if you're in a studio apartment, you can make different parts of your studio apartment built for different things. For example, you have your bed, you have maybe a small couch, and maybe like a little another area of your studio apartment or whatever. You can have obviously your kitchen area, like make that you're only going to eat and prepare food in that area. You're going to do nothing else in that area. Then there's the, you know, the couch or whatever. That's going to be where you lounge or you relax, you scroll social media or you read your book. That's going to be that area. And then maybe off in the corner you have like a small like, you know, beanbag chair or a work chair or something like that, that you can be, that's your workstation. That's when you're on your laptop. That's when you are going to be grinding at work, whatever it is your day job is or whatever it is you're doing. And then you have your bed. You're only sleeping in your bed. That's, you know, being able to compartmentalize your life in that way is very, very important in this time where you're cooped up in one place for a very long time. Because the minute you take your laptop from work into the kitchen, now it just seems like the day blurs together and that everything is the same. It's Groundhog's Day. You're less productive on your computer. You're less productive in the kitchen. All of those things just start to blend together. So the better you can compartmentalize your day and compartmentalize your living space, the better off you're going to be. Now, as far as the workout space, that's a little bit more challenging, right? Because if all you have is a little place, and that's you're going to have to make do. But I would say I would highly recommend people going outside to work out, as convenient as it is to work out inside. And I know you like to work out inside because the lighting is dope for your videos.
It is. It's real good for the
I
video
know.
lighting.
It's so good. Do you have like a natural sunlight, or do you have one of those like ring lights or something?
They have a natural sunlight like coming in, so it's beaming in.
Dude, it's
It's
amazing.
Thank you, man. It definitely is one of the blessings of having. I'm like, I have a full studio of this light. I can just come here and get my workout on it.
Yeah, it looks like you're in a professional studio, dude. Dude, that thing is dope.
Oh man, well, thank you. I'm not in a
But
professional studio, but yeah, thank you though.
I would recommend, though, even then, like if you're not filming videos and just doing your own workout for you, I would recommend getting outside. And this is for everybody. Get outside and work out. the studies are starting to come out that vitamin D deficiency is so important for battling this COVID thing.
I did see
A
that.
lot of there's a lot of research now that's saying that vitamin D deficiency, which over 70% of Americans are vitamin D deficient, is a contributing factor to the way that your body responds to COVID. Now, this is all preliminary stuff and whatnot, but at the same time, it's been known for years that vitamin D enhances your immune system. So when you're thinking about what types of exercises to do, you should be thinking about a couple of things. Number one, lung health, respiratory health. You should
Yes.
keep your cardio in tip-top shape, whether that's running, walking, jump rope, assault bike, rower, whatever it is you have access to. Get your heart rate up, because the healthier your lungs are, the more likely you are to have a successful recovery from COVID. And then I'm always a big proponent of just like bone density. So if you can do like a lot, calisthenics with like push-ups or handstand push-ups or sit-ups or anything like that, that's fine. But if you can get your hands on some weights, even if they're lighter weights, a lot of people struggle with this because they're like, man, I can't get jacked like I used to because I don't have access to as much weight. And that is true. You're not going to be able to get as jacked, but you can increase the intensity of that by adding tempo work. I'm a big fan of the tempo work when you have access to very light weights. So a
Hmm.
3-second lower, a 3-second rise, maybe even a 5-second lower if it's like a lower body exercise to add some difficulty.
Oh yeah.
Add difficulty by using tempo. So bone density is always a big one. So if, even, and you can do this with milk jugs, you can do this with water jugs. You don't have to have fancy equipment. Something is better than nothing when it comes to fitness. But the more you get outside, big fan of getting outside and getting that natural sunlight and that vitamin D into your skin.
It's funny you say that because I was literally thinking like, yeah, next week I'm start working out outside because I'm like it's good for the lighting, but I can just sometimes I just do like I'll make a video like either before or after I train, just because it's like I want to have it be like its own separate thing. So I'm
Hmm.
like, I'm definitely gonna just start working out more outside because I just even when I walk outside, I'm like, yeah, like I need this while I'm training, because I try to get the much vitamin D as I can. But like, I'm just glad you said that because I was already thinking it, and then like you just hear it from someone else, you're like, yeah, like all right, good, I was already on the right path. I got the sign that I
We,
needed.
every single one of us knows what to do. You know what I mean? Like deep down inside, we all know instinctively what we should be doing. We just need a little bit of a reminder. That's all. We just need somebody to just bring it up, and you think, "Oh God, I was thinking that. Like I should. Yeah, you're right. I should be doing that a little bit more." But yeah, I'm very big on the vitamin D tip right now. And there was because of the research that's been coming out, it's starting to become very prevalent to me that it's great for your immune system. It's great for vitamin D, and actually, I've been sleeping a whole hell of a lot better because I've been spending a little bit more time outside. I feel like the sun just drains me a little bit more. So by the
Hmm.
time it's lights out time, I just feel more fatigued. Actually another one too is I wanted to hit on when it comes to your health during quarantine and during shelter in place is you have to realize that you're stressed out. You have to realize that whether you have acknowledged it or not, or it's dawned on you, and by this time it's dawned on most people that this is starting to stress them out. But that stress affects your training in a lot of different ways. Your hormone levels can be out of whack, your sleep cycle is out of whack, your circadian rhythm is out of whack. You might not be drinking as much water because you don't feel as thirsty, even though your body still needs as much water. You might be relying a little bit more on coffee or caffeine, tea, because you have access to your coffee machine at home. Yeah, you had alluded to snacks and having chips and stuff like that. You have access to your pantry. Um, Basically, it's time to get back to basics when it comes to your nutrition. And that is prioritizing your sleep, limiting your caffeine intake as much as you possibly can, dialing in your circadian rhythm. And what I mean by that is, trying your best to diligently every single day, even if it's on a weekend, wake up and go to bed at the same time. As hard as it sounds, that's the best thing that you can do for your circadian rhythm, because the more consistent you are with that, the more your body starts to expect it and anticipate it. And then your hormone levels get a little bit better. You start to sleep even more. You start to sleep even better because your body's expecting to sleep at a certain time.
Hmm.
And obviously, sleep is super important just for overall health and wellness, and and just prioritizing your nutrition as well. So those are the things that they're super basic things, but right now is the most important time to get back to basics, because let's face it, most of us are just not going to get in better shape than we were prior to COVID, because we just don't have access to the same amount of equipment that we once had. So now it's time to pivot a little bit and start to think like, okay, what is the reason that I'm exercising? What is the reason I'm taking care of my body? It's to prevent getting COVID, for one, right? And if I do get COVID, then is my body going to respond to it? And it's turning into a mental health epidemic as well,
It
or
definitely
pandemic as
is.
well. So taking care of all of those things really helps with mental sanity. So there's a lot of things, but those are the things that I would recommend everybody start getting into. Recently, I'll tell you just one last thing is, recently I've quit coffee. And
Wow.
the reason why I quit coffee was because I wanted to sleep better. I wanted to start prioritizing my sleep. What happens when you drink coffee, your body, talking about that circadian rhythm, is you have a circadian rhythm, and it's basically the natural ebb and flow of your energy levels throughout the day and evening. And with that energy levels come your hormonal balance too:
Hmm.
testosterone, cortisol, other types of growth hormone that happen, after you work out and certain times of the day. Now, when you wake up, your body is at its peak when it comes to hormone levels, specifically cortisol levels. So when you wake up, that's why when you wake up, that's actually the optimal time to exercise, is because your body is full of energy. You're more likely to have a productive workout, and actually, you're just more likely to be productive in general, even in your work. So if you're a writer or something, you should be waking up, boom, start writing, because that's when your energy levels are at its highest. So as the day goes on, your cortisol levels start to dip, your hormone levels start to dip, and your body slowly starts to wind down into the evening. When the sun starts to go down, your body starts to produce melatonin, which is a sleep aid. And then next thing you know, the sun is down and boom, lights out, you're going to sleep. And then as you're sleeping, you get restorative sleep. And then your body slowly starts to increase all those hormone levels, and then rinse, wash, and repeat every single day. That's how your body normally will operate. Well, what happens is when you start to include like stimulants or depressants like alcohol and caffeine, is it throws off that hormone balance. It throws off that circadian rhythm. The most common thing that people can relate to is, a night out drinking. You have like a 6-pack of beer, or you go crazy at the club, and you go to bed at 2 o'clock, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm going to go to sleep and I'm not going to wake up till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But then you go to sleep at 2 p.m. and you wake up at like 5,
Yep.
right? Like it's just like the weirdest thing, and you cannot sleep for the life of you. That's because the alcohol is inhibiting certain sleep receptors to help you fall into deep REM sleep. So going back to caffeine, every time you drink a cup of coffee, it spikes your cortisol levels. Your body identifies caffeine as a stressor. And so when your body identifies something as a stressor, your cortisol levels spike. It throws your circadian rhythm out of alignment. And now all of a sudden, if you have a cup of coffee at 1 p.m., let's say, then your body is going to get tricked into thinking that it's kind of earlier in the day than it actually is. So then when you try to go to sleep at like 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening,
Yep.
when your
It's
body's
totally
supposed to
messed
go to
up.
sleep, your body internally is going to be feeling like it's 5 p.m., not 9 p.m. So when I
Absolutely.
went to cut out caffeine, that was the reason why I wanted to do that. It was hard because I had headaches the first few days, and it's still actually kind of hard now because it only happened like last week. But I'm telling you, Dom, it has improved my sleep quality tenfold.
I imagine
Literally, the
so.
best night's sleep that I've had in the last week, it's have come in the last week, and I haven't slept this well in years. And it's because I'm convinced it's because I'm not drinking coffee.
I can agree with that. I can definitely see that because I don't drink coffee that often either. Like overall, like I haven't drank coffee all quarantine. I don't drink coffee that much personally because same reason I like to be able to sleep and focus. So I've been able to focus more on sleep. 'Cause I've been prioritizing sleep as well. So I've been trying to get 8 hours, like no matter what. I kind of base my schedule off how many hours of sleep I can get. So like if I go to bed at this time, I get up at this time. Do that Monday through
Right.
Friday and doing that way. So I can imagine how good you feel like taking it out and then like refocusing on sleep. 'Cause I feel like fantastic just by changing like my focus to just sleeping in the day, basing the day off sleep. So not taking it coffee out and doing that, you probably feel like you can like fly right now practically.
Dude, yes, it's so crazy. It's very fascinating, actually.
I'm sure it is. Now, Danny, I know you have to go pretty soon. For anyone new listening, how do they find you? How do they keep in touch?
You can go to the website IronCrewAthletics.com. That's where you can find everything. You can find YouTube videos, podcasts, I'm working on an exercise and mobility library as we
Nice.
speak. So within the next couple of months, that should be 100 videos strong of different exercises and tutorials and videos and whatnot. And then the blog, I try my best to do at least one blog a week, getting into the groove of that. It's all nutrition based. It's all fitness based. My biggest priority when it comes to any content that I put out is geared towards longevity. My goal is to educate people on how to train forever, how to train sustainably for the rest of their life, because nothing bothers me more than somebody who walks into the gym and says they want to get a six pack because they have a vacation coming up, and then they train super hard for 6 months and it's so unsustainable. They go on their vacation and then they balloon back up to what they were
Yeah.
before. And sure, it was great because they had their moment in the sun, but it bothers me that like people, they don't prioritize their health as much. They just want the aesthetics. Now the aesthetics will come if you prioritize your health, but my focus in general with Iron Crew is its sustainable approach to nutrition, to mobility, and to exercise in general.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, guys, check it out. I'll have his information in the notes as well, whether you're watching this on YouTube or on the podcast link. This should be on your phone. Danny, thanks so much for being on the show. Guys, thanks for watching, and take care.